So here in Intro to Business, Microsoft Office, we've been talking about making decisions, making economic decisions, and one of the ways that businesses and people make decisions is through the process of budgeting. So a budget, basically a spending plan. And so let's take a look at a simple budget here using Excel. The Sanchez family has a monthly take-home pay of $3,900. Each month they pay for the needs listed below. Create a worksheet that calculates their total needs, which we talked about in class the other day, and calculate how much is left over for other needs and wants. Calculate the percentage that each expense represents of the total expenses listed. And we'll also take a look at the percentage of the expenses as a percent of the monthly income. So first step is to list all of our expenses, and so we can do this real quickly because we have them listed here for us already. So what we can do is just simply highlight those and copy, and then paste those into our budget. There they are. And then we can do the same thing with the dollar amounts. And then we can format those with a dollar sign. Decrease our decimals by 2 places. We have a monthly income to deal with here, $3,900. We can place right here. And decrease the decimal places by 2. Next step, let's calculate our total monthly expenses. So using Excel, we learned previously that we could click on each one of these, always starting with that equal sign, and then click the plus, click on the next one, plus, click on the next one, and we could do that, and that would work fine. But it's a little bit time consuming when we have a list like this, so we're going to use a quicker method, and we're going to use one of the functions, and the function is sum, S-U-M, the answer to an addition problem, S-U-M, parenthesis, puts us in the point mode, select the values, got these nice marching ants going around our selection or range of data, and close it with another parenthesis, and enter, or click the check mark right there. So our total is $2,600. Total monthly expenses left over for other needs, otherwise known as discretionary income. Discretionary. Money that we don't have a firm commitment as to what we should do with it. So we started with our monthly income of $3,900. We have expenses of $2,600. How much is left over? If you said subtract, you are correct. So we're going to subtract monthly income, and from that we are going to subtract the monthly expenses to see what we have left over. And so we have $1,300 left over. The next thing we can do is calculate a percentage what each percent of these expenses represents of the total monthly expenses. And so to calculate a percentage, an easy way to think about that, always think about taking a part of something and dividing it by the whole or total amount. Part divided by the whole. So in this case, we are going to compare each individual expense to the total expenses and see what we come up with here. So it's just another way to analyze our expenses to see how they compare to one another, which ones are the biggest, the smallest, and so on and so forth. And also we're going to later take a look at how things change if we do something called a what-if analysis. So, equal sign, house payment divided by the total expenses, check mark. All right, so we get a decimal value here. And one of the things you really need to become proficient at is converting decimals to percentages. And some of you perhaps remember from your earlier math courses that a decimal value can be converted to a percentage by moving that decimal point 2 places back to the right. 2 places because percent essentially means per 100. And then, of course, adding the percent sign. Now in Excel, what we can do is simply come up and click on the percent sign. And then determine how many decimal places we want. And most of the time in this class, we like to have 1 decimal place. So we're going to click right there, 30.8%. And so then go ahead and do that for the rest of these. Oh, we had a little mistake there. I'm going to go ahead and finish these off, taking just a little shortcut that we're going to show you a little bit later on. But for now, you go ahead and practice creating each of those so that you get something that looks like that. And then the next step will be to add those up. And remember the sum function, SUM. Any guesses on what that total should be? Yes, 100%. If it was not 100%, we would have to go back and find out why it is not 100%. So that's creating a basic budget. And the next step that we can do is take a look at and do a what if. And so what we mean by that is that what if I come up here and all of a sudden we get a pay raise and our income becomes $4,500. What happens? Now, because we've created a lot of formulas and these numbers relate to one another, you're going to see some things change. So let's take a look. All right. Well, it creates more left over for other needs. How about if we had a pay decrease, went down to $3,500? Well, we have 1,000 left over. How about if we went down to $2,500? Ooh, nothing left over. We might want to cut out some expenses. Maybe we need to cut out our food bill a little bit. Give us a little extra there. Maybe our clothing doesn't have to be quite so much. So the what-if analysis allows you to change variables and see what happens to your financial situation to help you make some decisions about how you spend money. Let's go over and make another column and call it percent of income. This here was actually a percent of our total expenses. Let's do one where we take a percentage of our total income. And I believe we had started originally with 3,900. I'm going to get back to where we were. I had messed with these numbers quite a bit. We had 50, 400, 300 originally, 650, 250. That looks like where we were to begin with. So now we're going to take a percentage of these expenses and of our leftover or our discretionary income and see what it is as a percent of our total income. So this time then we're still going to create the equal sign. Take the amount and divide that, but this time divide it by monthly income. .205, it's actually 20.5%. We'll go ahead and convert that to a percentage. And once again, I'm going to have you keep doing it like this so you get that practice. You really need to learn this and just have it just memorize like you know your name. Take the expense, divide it by, in this case, it's a percentage of the total income. And go ahead and do that for the rest of these, and also do it for the discretionary income, or the leftover there. That amount divided by our monthly income. And once again, I'm going to do the shortcut while you go and finish those up. And I will show you that shortcut at some point, but not yet, because I want you to get a lot of practice learning how to calculate a percent. And then get the total. And there's that 100%. Now, I had a bit of a magic move there. You'll notice that if we had done it the way we had done it before, it would not have equaled 100%. So let me show you that again here. Well, there it is right there. There we go. So if we had just done like we had done earlier, equals sum, and only included our expenses, we would get an answer that looks like that. Not 100%. And the reason why it's not 100% is because of this that's left over for other needs. If you were to add those two together, what would be your guess as to what that would equal? You would be correct, 100%. And the reason why it's different is because this became that which we were taking a percentage of rather than our total monthly expenses. And this is the whole amount. And so we need to account for every dollar in order to reach 100%. And with a budget, you always want to account for every single dollar that comes in and every single dollar that is expended. So let me show you a new little technique here using that function formula, and we're going to use the control key. So I'm going to delete that and that, and it works like this. Do it just like we did before. Equals sum. Select these percentages. Now we can't keep going down because it'll cause us problems trying to select a cell that we're actually creating the formula in. So we're going to have something called non-contiguous cells. These cells are contiguous, meaning they're right next to each other. It's like the contiguous United States. There's actually 48 states in the contiguous United States, and Alaska and Hawaii are not attached to the rest of them. So in order to be able to include this one down below here, we hold down the control key and select it right there. And so it allows us to click non-contiguous cells. So we have these selected, and then you also see you got marching ants around that one cell there. And then we can finish that off with our parenthesis, press enter. Now we have that accounted for 100%. So that's how you would do that calculation there as far as our percentages. Now take a quick look here, and just the last thing that I'll point out and why this is important is because when people loan you money, especially if you go to get a house loan, they're going to want to know the breakdown of your expenses, and in particular how a house payment will affect your total income. And so if these numbers get to be too big, it starts to get up to be 30, 40, 50% of your take-home pay, that becomes a problem, and they probably won't want to loan you the money for the house. They want to see that house payment down in a range, probably something like this would be okay. But when you start getting up in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, it becomes real hard to make that payment. And the last thing they want you to do is not be able to pay your bills, because then you go into this situation, they come and take your home and foreclose, and that's not a happy situation. So we don't want to do that. So have some fun, play around with these numbers, don't worry about making mistakes, ask questions, and by the time we are through this year, you're going to be very proficient using Microsoft Excel.